next script tonight is The Deal by Prescott Tolk. Prescott, do you want to come up? This is inspired by a true story told by Moses Storm. 18 and new to Los Angeles, Moses finds an incredibly cheap apartment on Craigslist, but it comes with a concerning roommate, and Moses soon learns that you get what you pay for. It was a scintillating story. It was very Taken-esque. Prescott, do you want to tell us how the story inspired you and what your process was in writing the screenplay?
Yes, I do. I'll just imagine you're all listening to this on your radio, in the car, and you're really curious. So first of all, I want to say I did try to originally honor this story. I made one little twist at the end. Essentially, the story came down to a Craigslist transaction where an 18-year-old rooming with a 29-year-old discovers the 29-year-old is a sex offender and leaves without his stuff, and the end. I wanted one little thing. I thought a fun button would be that the guy just acts like he's a sex offender and scams 18-year-olds for $400 at a time. And then as I started to write it, I don't know why my brain went, it's something just felt hokey about it. Is that a word, hokey? Hokey, I don't know. So then I started to think, I don't know, I got this in my head where someone is using the anecdote of that happening in an analogous situation, kind of very Tarantino style, where someone would go through this long anecdote of something else and then shit happens. And then so I had this thing where, okay, this guy is telling this anecdote in a diner. And I was like, well, what is the analogous situation? What is the deal? And once I figured that out, the story unraveled, and before I knew it, I don't think Moses' story entered anything. But I couldn't have done it without the original story, I'll say that. And if you do look at this in its bare bones, it is a transaction between two strangers where there is a fear.
Prescott, why don't you choose the lucky director for the transaction?
All right, let's see. Michelle Sam.
Oh. All right, The Deal.
Interior, Sal's Diner, 10 p.m. Barry, a heavy-set man in his late 50s, sits at the booth alone in a near-empty diner. He has a rough, disheveled look, wrinkled blazer, stubble, bloodshot pupils. He rips open a packet of sugar and empties it into a cup of coffee in front of him. He stirs in the sugar and puts the spoon on the napkin next to it. He looks out the window, but he can only see his reflection. Exterior, parking lot. It's pitch black, pouring rain. The only light we see is from the neon sign that reads, Sal's Diner. We see the headlights of a sedan pull into the lot. Interior, car. John, 30, slender, looks out of his windshield as heavy drops hit it. He takes a deep breath. He opens the glove compartment, grabs two thick envelopes, tucks them into a pocket inside his jacket, and then opens the car door. Interior, Sal's Diner. John enters. There's a long counter. At one end, a tall, stocky customer sits at the counter reading a newspaper. John looks at the other end, spots Barry at a booth, and saunters toward him with the casual stride of a gunslinger and joins him in the booth.
You made it.
John nods. Outside, we hear thunder and see two quick flashes of lightning.
What can I get you?
I'm good. Give him a cup of coffee.
The waiter looks at John for approval.
All right, cup of coffee.
The waiter returns to the kitchen.
You work alone?
Mostly.
Everyone's freelancing nowadays.
Low overhead, fewer witnesses.
But even fewer testimonials. That was the whole point of being connected, you know? People could vouch for people. Now, forget it. Whole thing has become a fucked up game of Russian roulette.
It is what it is.
Barry doesn't like that answer. He takes a sip of coffee and a deep breath.
So how long you know Tommy?
Met him about 3 years ago.
You're Folsom?
Yeah, we did a lot of laundry together.
Yeah, great guy with the worst luck. I heard he'll be removing stains for 3 more years.
Do with good behavior.
The waiter returns and places a cup of coffee in front of John. He tops off Barry's cup and then leaves.
You're not much of a talker, huh?
Impassively, John shakes his head, causing Barry to neurotically run his fingers through his hair.
You know, for the record, I don't really make a habit out of talking to people I don't know, but Tommy's an old friend, so I made an exception. Even then, I'm a little hesitant. You understand?
John nods. Barry takes a sip of his coffee.
I don't think you understand. This is a high-risk situation for me. All right? There's clear stakes. Things could go wrong. They often do. Now, you came to me with a request believing that I would be able to fulfill it, right?
Right.
And by showing up, I've showed you my hand. Right? You now know that I'm the type of guy who can... the kind of guy that does this kind of business. I don't know jack shit about you. Yeah, we have a mutual acquaintance, but it's a mutual acquaintance whose better judgment got him locked up for a decade. So, you know, when I ask you if you understand what I mean, instead of nodding, talk. Tell me something, anything. Could be about your favorite movie, your high school sweetheart, or your dyslexic sister who got pregnant doing anal. You know, something. I want to know what I'm talking, and I'm talking to someone real. Understand?
The good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm always single, and I'm an only child. Now here's the thing. I called, you showed. If you're looking for a friend, go on Facebook. You want to do business without consequences? Invent a time machine and go back to the year before Craigslist.
John reaches into his pocket and pulls out an envelope, puts it on the table, and then leans in.
That's half. Let me do a quick litmus test in the restroom. It checks out. I'll give you the other half. Then you're free to finish your coffee and the rest of this conversation with the guy at the end of the counter.
Barry is stunned by John's bluntness. They stare at each other, both of them looking for trust in each other's eyes, and neither one coming to any conclusions. Letting out some anxiety, Barry sneers and puts a bundled brown package on the table.
There you go.
John grabs that bundle and heads to the other end of the diner, walking past the customer at the counter and around the corner. Barry looks at the envelope. It has so much packaging tape around it, it's virtually impenetrable. Interior, restroom. John puts his foot on the toilet seat, grabs a knife from a sheath tied to his ankle, and stabs the top of the bundle. Some white powder spills out. John touches it, spreads it on his gums, and shakes his head in disappointment.
Motherfucker!
He turns around, swings the door open, and gets punched in the face. It's the customer from the counter. He grabs John's neck.
Give me the rest of the fucking money.
John manages to get the knife, but when he lifts it up, the man grabs his wrist, elbows his face, grabs the knife, and slices John on the side of the stomach. He reaches into John's coat, finds the other envelope, and flees, leaving John on the floor. Exterior, parking lot. Barry waits inside the car. The customer jumps in the car. The two men skid away into the dark, rainy night. Interior, diner. John exits the restroom. He staggers toward the booth with one hand covering his stab wound. With the other hand, he holds the brown bundle. A family of 4 at one table eats and irks each other, unaware that anything criminal has happened in the background. The waiter, also clueless, wipes down the counter. John sits back down at the booth, his coffee still there. He takes the package with a hole in it and pours a little of the white powder into his coffee and stirs. He's a mess, sweaty, bloody. He looks out the window but can only see his reflection.
Will that be all?
Yeah, that's it.
The waiter puts the check on the table. John reaches into his pocket and pulls out a bill. There's some blood on his finger and on the bill.
Can you break 100?
As long as it's real.
John shrugs and puts the $100 bill back in his pocket. Cut to black.
The deal. Lightly inspired by Moses' Storm story.